Bismarck-Burleigh Commission's Committee to order. If we call roll, please.
Administrator Tomanek?
Here.
Auditor Sponskowski?
Here.
Mayor Schmitz?
Here.
Commissioner Bakken?
Here.
First item is approval of the minutes, and I mean, I generally know what occurred, but
I've moved to approve.
Second.
any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carries. Okay, so we can go to, looks like Renee's here,
Renee's
so
here, yeah.
we might as well start with the Bismarck-Burleigh Public Health 2026 budget discussions. And I guess from our perspective, from the city, you guys had any preliminary discussions at the county? What the ratio would look like on funding?
Did you get that set on the agenda or not, Wayne?
No, we had
Okay.
a conversation here at this meeting.
Right.
And I was waiting for, city finance director to get those numbers so that we
Okay.
can bring them.
Yeah, because we didn't get those yet,
There
so,
they are. I got them.
great, better late than never. Do you want to run through those numbers now? And, I'm sorry to hijack.
No, it's fine, that's why we're here.
Do you want to run through those numbers now, and then we can get that on our next agenda?
Right.
Okay.
Yep. So this is what I had asked, sorry, let me get to the mic. Wayne Munson, Burleigh County Commission. What I had asked Dimitri to do was set up ratios of a 75-25 split where we were last year, 60-40 and 50-50, just so we had all three numbers to look at. So the Burleigh County, or the Burleigh County Public Health, Bismarck-Burleigh Public Health is looking at a total tax levy of $2,401,240. So if we split the exact same way we did last year at 75-25, it'd be $600,310, which is less than what our dollars were this year. If we go 60-40, it was $960,496, and at 50-50, it's $1,200,620. So this is what I was waiting for to present to Burleigh County.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I won't speak for the rest of the commission on that, so I'll wait until that comes on our agenda. Do you want to make sure that gets on the next agenda? Thank you.
So is I guess the desire to make an incremental step towards more,
I gotta wait for the entire commission on that, so, because I don't know where everybody's at. I know where Wayne's at, and I know where I'm at, but I don't know where the rest of the commissioners are at, so that'll be a discussion in 2 weeks, I guess,
okay,
for us.
because we're all heading into that
Yeah.
wonderful season.
Yeah. Well, that's why we started doing budgets earlier, right, Dimitri? March.
It's quite a few years ahead.
Yeah. No, that doesn't work well for the state, so no.
Okay, well then, I guess we'll just wait and hear what you
Okay.
ultimately have thoughts on, and we'll have to start planning one way or the other. And also knowing that there are probably some grants that have gone away, or at least temporarily gone away. from the
Right.
Federal side. Do you want to, yeah, go ahead.
So just for your awareness, we are kind of in limbo land when it comes to our federal funding. We've been told by the State Health Department to plan for level funding for the most part, and as they find out more, then we will find out more. And so a lot of our grants that we do have are direct expense grants, so whatever goes out comes in, and those grants have been in place for quite some time. And so when we put together our budget for 2026, we had a meeting with City Finance to talk through the best way to do this, just because it's so difficult for planning for us right now. And we're planning pretty much level funding as far as federal funds go. So we'll kind of see where it goes from there. The projected numbers that we were asked to put together are looking at what we anticipate based on what we know today. So if something were to change, if we were to get notification from the federal level to say that, this funding stopped yesterday, we had a couple of grants like that happened to us. we can't predict that, of course, and so can't really plan for that. So we're planning based on what we know today and going from there. The splits that we were asked to do, I think Commissioner Munson had brought up that he wanted a couple of different options to look at, the 50-50 split, the 60-40, and then the 75-25. And if you do look at this, the increase from 25 to 26, it's about a 3% increase from 25 to 26 if you guys stay at the 25% cost share that you had approved last year. So that's the budget, the dollar amount that we would be looking at.
How much of that grant funding is staffing versus programming that you're kind of waiting on the federal level? Was there some staff funding that was going to go away because of loss of grants, or because I remember COVID, we picked up some staffing because of some grants. So
Yep.
what's the breakout on that?
So the staffing for COVID funding, we had 1.5, I think, a nurse and then a part-time. Those positions are gone, and they have not been refilled. We have some consistent grant funding that has been in place for years, and substance abuse prevention, tobacco prevention. We have our Ryan White program and a Women's Way program. We did get word from the Women's Way program that we will have our contract at level funding for the next year. So we are for sure on that one, and that one is 2 staff people that we have there. We have emergency preparedness individuals, and we've been told up to this point to plan for level funding for that. But there are 2 people that work for emergency preparedness and response. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but for now,
So
they're
staffing
okay.
right now is level, it's not just programming.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And you said 3% increase is what you've budgeted. That's the tax component, the general, called general fund component.
Yeah.
Not the tax levy piece is up 3% year over year.
So if
in the
you look
preliminary
at
budget?
what we took from our projected expenses for 2026 and the projected revenue that we have coming in, this includes all of our expenses, grants, and everything. And what's left after that is the 2 million that Commissioner Munson had mentioned, 2.4 million. And then if you stayed at the 25%, it would be 600,000, 310. And that is a 3% increase from last year. The last year's contract was 582, 502.
That answered my question.
Okay.
I just,
Yep.
how
And
much the
then-
total dollars were going up.
Yeah. Well, so for our next county commission meeting, can you present at that as well as part of our discussion with that? Because I think these are valuable numbers and the full breakout. And then can you get some information for the packet too, please, just to make a couple commissioners happy?
There,
Yeah, instead of, yeah, thank you.
yeah, and just for your awareness, I mean, budgeting has been super difficult for public health because
That's for everybody.
well, I understand that, but
Yeah.
just for planning for a long term, I'm trying to plan long term based on stuff we don't know tomorrow, and I know that's across several programs,
Well, and
but
that's what my question was for the staffing versus programming on some of the grant funding you're waiting and find out on. So is that big difference? So
yep, for sure.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Renee.
Thanks.
Okay. City county building probably relates to Provident building as well.
Yeah. Did you catch them up, Wayne, on the? No. Okay.
Well, yes.
Last.
The mayor wasn't here, so you might as well.
Oh, okay. So our lead times for the bids came out about 2 years. So we're kind of planning on keeping everything in place as it is right now for the next 2 years.
Through 26 into 27?
27, yeah. So
Okay. I'm not sure if I asked the question right, so
I would assume all the way through.
through 27.
through 27.
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't
that's
ask
kind of
the
what we're
que-
planning
I-
on, because by the time we get everything moved over in there, we're
Well,
gonna be
that's
dealing
what-
with
I
some
mean,
stuff.
And I saw
yeah.
the bids and I figured
Yeah.
from what I heard, but I just,
They all got drug out, and we were working on some contingencies that were gonna truncate the timetable a little bit, but logistically, it just didn't work, so we're gonna be a full 2 years in the build, from everything we've been told by our contractors.
and does that, so that would mean IT related to this building still for?
Yes, yes. Everything remains the same for the next 2 years is what we're kind of planning on.
Okay.
I don't know if you've had discussions at your budget table with the, or maybe that's Dimitri coming up as far as cost per square footage, between city-county building and this building. I'm fine with the numbers staying the same.
I'd be inclined to just leave the rates.
Leave
where they
everything
are.
the same? Yeah. I
At
would
least
be-
on the building side. IT, because
Yeah.
you don't know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dimitri.
And now Dimitri's going to speak.
Yeah, he'll tell us differently.
He's going to shoot down everything we just talked about.
Commissioners, committee members, I want to make sure you guys are aware. So IT has informed me that we have a, starting next year, we'll be replacing switches again, we just did that like, I think 4 years ago or
Yeah.
5 years ago. And so that will, because if you continue to stay on the first floor, that might be a charge that we
Okay.
might have to tack on to the IT agreement if you were to stay through 27. I was talking to IT and saying, well, if the Burleigh County doesn't stay for much longer, then it won't be much of an issue at all. We'll just,
And when were you looking at, or when was IT looking at doing the switches?
next year.
Okay, so, okay,
So we may have to discuss that
yeah.
as part of the IT proposal that I will send out.
But just to get clarification, as far as the rental per square foot for the building, you guys
Current
are good
rates.
with the numbers?
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know why we would change those.
okay, thank
I
you.
mean, yeah, it's. to
Comes
me-
from the
to
same
me-
pocket, it's
yeah,
all taxpayer
well,
dollars,
yeah, I
so
mean,
it's,
It's
yeah. What we can
short term.
Save them
it's-
is better.
It's trying to be good neighbors as best we can, and no, I don't think rental rates have actually gone up. I think they stayed pretty flat in the city for the last couple of years. There's certainly a space available, just not big enough space and to plop an office into. Okay,
Maybe if I can ask a question of the plans for Burleigh County. Once the offices are located in the Provident Building, what is the intent for a meeting room? Do you anticipate continuing to use the Tom Baker meeting room for County Commission, County Planning Commission? water
Not when we get
resource?
over there, because we're gonna have our own meeting space, is the plan. I can talk to, because you just need it for this floor or the first floor as well with the switches and some of the.
I
IT
wasn't even
updates.
thinking about
Okay.
switches. I was thinking about how the community is going to engage with Burleigh County and where your meetings will be held and whether or not we, as the owner of this building, should anticipate your continued use in this particular room, or if there are plans. I haven't seen any of the drawings for Providence, so
Okay.
I don't know.
Last discussions we had, the last plans I saw, we are planning on having our own meeting rooms, our own
Okay.
meeting space. To be discussed with Dakota Media Access and see what that looks like as well for, there might be a scenario where it is better off that we stay here just for that, but that's a conversation I can continue to have. So, I mean, everything's set up here anyway, so it'd be a little silly to be redundant with Dakota Media Access and extra expense there.
not going to disagree, but
So,
I mean, we have.
I mean, our plans were to go over there, but the logistics of the technology involved, we're still working through that.
Sure.
So it's kind of what works for residents the best, Dakota Media Access, what's beneficial to the city and the county, and we'll have that conversation as probably sooner than later, so.
We, or the city commission, has not had any discussions about the future uses of this particular room, the Tom Baker meeting room, but I guess I have my own thoughts about
Were the
this
plans,
room and-
you guys gonna stay down here or not?
Well, if the first floor becomes available, which it appears, into 2027 it would, I would really like to explore the option of moving this room to the main level.
Right.
Primarily for
Easier
safety,
access and-
security, and
yeah.
accessibility. I think, Commissioner Bakken, you may have been here when we had a number of paratransit users
Yes.
in this room, and it took a tremendous amount of
Yep.
time to use the elevator to get them out of the building.
Actually, that was prior to the elevator being upgraded a little bit and some work done on the elevator too. So
So-
that was kind of the impetus to that.
Yeah, just thinking about utilizing the space that we have in this building, if the first floor becomes entirely available, I think we have a responsibility to
Yeah.
find the highest and best use for that. If this facility continues to facilitate all the public meetings in this location, I think that's a great conversation. I think that's what a lot of people have come to expect. I think if we start parsing out, county's got their own room, schools has their room, suddenly we're not really as accessible for
Right.
some citizens. So I think, personally, I think there's value in having one location, but at the same time, if it just doesn't work, it just doesn't work, and that's a decision that each board would have to make
Yeah.
for themselves.
Well, I think
So-
that's, depending on what that would look like as far as a remodel, because again, accessibility, and that was the thing we were running into with the Provident Building. We actually relocated our meeting space just to have more accessibility for the public, and unfortunately, we cannot be on the first floor there, which would be the best, but that's something we've had come up in discussion as well. So, and if it does make the most sense that for accessibility for the public, then absolutely we'll explore that.
And the city does have funds identified in this year's budget. We were, initially, when we were doing budget planning for 2025, we knew the county was considering relocating to Provident, and I guess we were thinking it was a little shorter time frame. So we, as the city, do have funds identified this year for basically an architectural service to reimagine what this building could look like, knowing that we've got until the end of 2027. Might be a little premature for us to engage in that particular project, but I think knowing what final decisions the county makes will have a big influence on how we look at this building too. And it could be such that you guys build such a great public meeting room that everybody wants to go
Maybe you
to the
come over to
Provident
ours,
building.
who
And-
knows, so.
And then we reimagine this building both on the lower level and the main level.
But I think that's a great discussion for the city and the county to have, to see what's the best use of that space from a public meeting perspective, and what we wind up with, and what could potentially be here, and how that best suits the public, so.
It'd be great if we didn't have to duplicate a bunch of
Yeah,
service,
so
a
that
bunch
would
of
be a
that
great
space.
conversation to have. It's,
And thinking about the resources that Dakota Media Access provides, obviously they're broadcasting all of these meetings. If
well, and
we
you
were-
work with them a lot, so, and I know the conversations goes back a ways about upgrading some of the equipment in there as well, so.
Yep.
Now would be a really good time to have that conversation on what they would like to do, and if it's one location, whether it's here or there, for all the different meeting spaces, so that they can have that coverage, then
Yep.
we should have that conversation. So if you want to help facilitate that,
Okay.
that'd be greatly appreciated.
Anything else on Provident,
No.
city, county building? Okay. Other business?
Yeah, want to have a good discussion about the extraterritorial zone. Jason and I had a real good conversation last Friday. This is an issue that's been coming up for a long time. I know when I was mayor, Commissioner Marquardt, myself, Commissioners Peluso and Bittner on the county side had exhausting discussions of what it would look like or how to go through the process, and we did not come up with a workable solution to meet the needs of the residents of the ETA. Now, that being said, Jason and I had an hour phone call and got to spitball a lot of things. I think it'd be very beneficial if we utilized this time or another time to have a full city-county commission joint meeting with our full quorums and go through a little bit of the history of the ETA, what some of the concerns are, what the detriment are, use it as a little bit of a lesson opportunity for those that may not be fully versed with it. And then I would like to have some public hearing opportunities to have residents speak up, because anybody that's in the ETA is probably a future resident of Bismarck with the growth rate of Bismarck, but we have to figure out how to manage that.
Yeah, there
And
might be
we-
some areas of the ETA that
Yeah.
need to be rethought.
Well,
about.
and I was an advocate of this before. I mean, there's areas that Bismarck is just not going to grow into. And
Totally agree.
let it go. I mean, that would benefit ETA residents, county residents, and actually help on the flood insurance rates in some areas as well. So it's worth a full discussion. And I would like to get a whiteboard up and everybody get the concerns on and let our staffs work through that afterwards.
So-
Make it a working group.
Make it a working.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's a bad idea. I just, a part of me thought maybe a smaller group of us first. But, I mean, I'm
It's
not.
the educational piece, because I know there's commissioners that don't fully understand on the city side. I don't know, well, I think everybody, because Wayne, you've gotten fairly involved with it on the county side, and I know the other commissioners have been there long enough to know that, but I think from an educational perspective, I think we should get everybody down at the table and come up with some solutions, at least from an educational piece. Here's the history of the ETA, here's why it exists, here's how it exists, and then start going through some of the concerns and start working through it.
So when, timeline-wise, are you thinking from the county's perspective works?
I'm open whenever. My initial thought, and when I'd spoken with Jason, was utilize this meeting time, but if we want to have a special meeting at after 5, so maybe more people can watch on TV or listen.
So when's our meeting in July? What date of that? Is it the first?
First Tuesday in July,
So
so
it'd be
that
July
is
1st?
July 1st, yeah.
So whatever your availability is.
Well, I mean, availability is, you just fit it in, right?
Yeah.
So do we want to take it in
I brought it up last night, and
Well, yeah,
there's
just what-
appetite from our commission to do that.
I'm wondering if
So-
it's in 2 steps or 3 steps. I mean, do you want to do kind of an educational
Well, I-
session
I-
first? I'm just asking questions.
Yeah, before the public's involved, I think we need to get together and have the informational piece and what the concerns are, the history, the background, because I think there are some commissioners that don't know the full story, the full history, and knowing that, I think, is important, because having that information is where you can start coming up with some solutions. So probably a 2-step, so that we can address some of the issues, give staff some time to digest that, get it back to both of our commissions, and then we can start having some informational inputs.
So I think if we're going to have the input sessions, I think we need to do those in an evening, so.
Right.
I
Those would
think,
be in the evening,
I think midday is just hard for people.
yeah. I mean, the first informational for just us staffs to get, or commissions to get together, I think we could probably utilize this time. But yeah, the informational meeting are
Let's put
gonna
it
have
on
to
our
be a
agenda
different.
the request is from the county commission is asked to do it, and I have no problem with that, because honestly, I didn't know where this was going last week, to be honest.
Yeah, well, and part of this was I had a lot of people reach out after last week's city commission meeting, and it was, a lot of people were concerned about the information or lack of institutional knowledge surrounding the ETA. So,
And there's probably some of that's lacking, I don't doubt that for a minute. I know we have to I do agree that there's some adjustments to the lines within the ETA, I think, that need to be looked at, and
well, and just
I
from-
even thinking about, spitballing, how do we make sure that the individuals who are in the ETA get their fair representation at planning and zoning, whoever the planning and zoning
Mm-hmm.
is, and so they feel like they have kind of control over.
Well,
who
and it
those
trickles
individuals
down
are.
into a lot of different areas too, because just on election side, I know in 2018, there was a bunch of disenfranchised voters. They didn't get ballots because they didn't get a city ballot in the city, but where the lines fell and with the new development and the growth and, yeah, so things like that, and if we can utilize the ETA as a way to clean up city boundaries a little bit, I think that's beneficial to the city. because honest to God, it's one of the most gerrymandered-looking maps I have ever seen in my life. And
Well,
it's,
and I don't want to go start annexing people just to.
no,
annex-
no,
Because
that's
that
not
that
the
doesn't
point.
seem
But
fair
we need to
right
come up
either.
with some solutions and
Some forward thinking as
Yeah.
to when those boundaries might
yeah.
move.
And like I said, Jason and I had an hour-long conversation, and I like to talk, so it was probably about 30 minutes longer than what it needed to be, but we had some really good ideas. So, and
And he and I have shared some.
things to
as
start
well,
working
so.
forward to as Bismarck grows and managing that with Burleigh County.
I think I can just offer an interesting perspective, having spent 10 years in community development. I started in 2006. Obviously, the ETA was in place at that time. We had a 2-mile and a 4-mile, and since that time, we've negotiated to a much different boundary. But I can tell you now, 19 years beyond where I was when I first started, I look at some of these rural subdivisions a lot differently and think about how would we annex this? And when I talk about annexation, what I'm thinking about is the services the city provides. And so the core services are obviously police and fire protection, 911 dispatch, emergency services, that's one thing. But then we're also talking about water and sewer. And how do we provide water and sewer to some of these rural subdivisions? And frankly, I don't know that there's an answer for all of those things. So I guess where
And
I'm starting
roads,
to,
you know, and roads
road
are
maintenance,
big discussion, and
trash
some of
collection.
those neighborhoods really don't need curb and gutter, and what does that look like?
And so when I think about these rural subdivisions today, I think about them differently in that if we, the city, are able to provide services, then those should be the services that they would be taxed or charged for. So in short, if there aren't fire hydrants in rural subdivisions, we cannot provide the same type of fire protection in a rural subdivision that we can in an urban subdivision. So either we address that one of two ways. We change the type of trucks that we're showing up with and we bring our own water like rural fire does, or we talk about what it would take to install a water line sufficient to provide the water flows for a hydrant. I don't know that either of those are really practical solutions in a lot of cases, but those are some of the ideas I think that we need to talk through about what would annexation look like in a rural subdivision. And to me, I don't think it's a blanket annexation, everybody gets the same services as an urban resident, because we, the city, can't simply provide those without disrupting a lot of what rural residents have come to appreciate, and that is large lots,
And we
rural
shouldn't, and we shouldn't
subdivisions.
annex them if there's no real need to.
Agreed.
I mean,
But
it's
we
really-
also have a few
But-
rural subdivisions that are right on the edge of city limits that could be impediments to growing in an urban pattern.
Right,
so-
and then you're gonna wind up leapfrogging with urban density.
Right.
And that's not workable either unless there's a solution to be linear.
Yeah. And the other thing I think needs to be mentioned, at least from our perspective, from the city's perspective, some of the ETA is areas in and around very important infrastructure for us. And I guess I'm thinking primarily right now about the airport.
Airport, yeah.
Obviously, that's an area that we have, a significant investment. We have a long-term play here. We need to be mindful about who the neighbors are within the airport's jurisdiction. And so some of these areas, I don't really know are negotiable, but I think in other cases where we've got examples of rural subdivisions that are established or in many cases built out to almost 100%, I think those are great places that we start the conversation and look at how do we really pull the ETA into a growth boundary that I think many of us can learn to understand and appreciate and really think about for the next 30 to 50 years.
Well, and the ETA's been there, and it's just been there. There's not been a working methodology for managing it, and I think that's part of the issue.
I mean, there was a line drawn and it never.
Yeah,
got-
that's all it was.
Really never
And-
got looked
And
at.
it's been an issue since then, and it's not a working model that benefits the county, the city, and the residents of the ETA, and we need to come up with a working model. It's far past time.
Okay. So we can plan our meeting on the 1st of July.
July 1st? Okay. You want to go and get that invite out and, okay.
Just a question, so our city commission will meet next week, Tuesday. We'll put an item on there that the request is to have a joint meeting at this time on July 1st. Just asking the question, if not all 5 city commissioners are available, does that change the request of Burleigh County? we do have commissioners that work full-time jobs, and
Right.
3 o'clock may not, 4 o'clock may not accommodate.
Tell you what,
their
see what your
schedule.
appetite is. If one missed and could watch it online, great, but I think we need at least a quorum of each commission,
I would agree.
so.
And then I think we're gonna put our planning staff, they're gonna have to help educate us or
Yeah.
provide the educational piece.
Well, and that's just it. So your planning staff, and fortunately, Jason's a great resource for a lot of that history piece, and we've got Mitch, and Mitch will be part of that too, so,
Okay.
perfect. Thank
Any
you.
other business?
That's all I had.
Okay, sounds good. I think we can be adjourned.
Awesome, thank you.